J-Mac.
Peyton. Good to see you, bud.
Good to see you, man. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah.
What was your favorite Christmas gift?
You know the cliche, probably getting to spend time with the family.
Mm.
I got some good coffee beans, some more socks. I got this new Chiefs hoodie, or not hoodie, beanie, and I'm hoping for a playoff win this year, but we'll see.
I don't know. We're looking a little shaky, aren't we?
We are, but I have faith in the young Patrick Mahomes, and I think if he gets a little help from the defense, we'll be all right.
How's it been being a Chiefs fan out in Nashville?
It's good. I've been cheering on the Titans a little bit too. They're a fun team to watch.
They are fun.
It's not like Arrowhead at Nissan Stadium. I will say that, out in public. But it's a fun team. It's fun cheering for them until their quarterback throws a touchdown to himself in the playoffs and beats the Chiefs.
That was brutal.
Yeah, and I was watching that with like 4 Titans fans. So
yeah, we were over at the
rough.
Brooksider.
It was rough.
And we were energy was low.
Yeah.
At that bar during that game. I don't think the Chiefs scored a point in the second half.
Yeah, it was one of those games that the house was really quiet during the first half, except for me and our mutual friend Seth, who's a Chiefs fan. And then it got really loud in the second half, and we got quiet.
It's amazing what a sports team in a smaller city can do to the whole city. I mean, when the Royals were those back-to-back years at 14 and 15, I mean, everybody was together.
Yeah.
There's so much camaraderie, so much love.
I kind of feel like there was a little bit of that feeling in the beginning of the year with Patrick's Mahomes start. It felt a little bit like that Royals 2014-15 run. We just need to play some defense.
Are you a hockey fan?
I am a Predators fan.
That was fun.
It still is fun. I think we have Bridgestone Arena is like Smashville. It's one of the most entertaining places to see a hockey game, and with that comes higher prices. Like I think 4 years ago we could go to a hockey game for $15. So it's got more expensive, but it's an awesome place to go see a hockey game. And I remember growing up going to like the KC Blaze games, and I wouldn't even really watch it. You just kind of go for the atmosphere and have popcorn and a soda. But you actually go to these games, watch the whole thing, and then playoff time is the best.
Yeah, it's great.
It's pretty cool.
Dude, that new song, Growing Up, it's pretty hot.
Appreciate it, man.
I've been jamming to it big time. When was that released?
We put that out in middle of October this year, and it's kind of had with the radio freezing at the end of every year. It freezes for about 2 weeks, and everyone takes 2 weeks off, and nothing really moves on the charts. It's just kind of gotten its way and just starting to kind of get its legs. But Kansas City's been playing the heck out of it. Todd Nixon over at 104.3 has been really supporting us, and we're ready for January 1st because we really think the song has a chance to do something. So
yeah, I've heard you guys on 104.3 quite often.
Yeah, it's been pretty awesome, man. He's been, I think, spinning it 4 or 5 times a day.
Yeah.
And so it's hopefully next time we play a show in Kansas City, it'll be a pretty big one.
And you guys did the Big D and Bubba show. And so is that a satellite radio show?
So that's a syndicated station. It I think technically is now. It's still played on stations. I'm not really sure who is running them because they changed a little bit after they did Chasing the Dream with us, and they run it all themselves now. So I think they're an independent syndicated radio station, probably played in 75, 80 cities.
Okay.
So a lot of those are Midwest. Some of them are randomly up in Syracuse, New York, and we got picked up by those guys. And I think about a year into town, Jordan Walker from the band, we were at a writers round at the Hotel Indigo in downtown Nashville.
When was this?
This was probably early 2013.
And you moved out in 2012?
Yeah, May 2012 we were out there. So
It
was pretty early into being out there. I met Jordan the 4th night in town. And if anyone's watching doesn't know, Jordan Walker is the guy I'm in a country duo with. And we started writing songs. And
how'd you meet?
We met at a writers round. It was
just hanging out.
Well, basically, when you move to Nashville, you go if you're trying to be a songwriter, and you look up right when you get there where the writers rounds are, and that consists of basically finding open mic nights. Because if you're new in town, no one knows who you are. They're not going to put you on a round to play a bunch of songs, you know. So you'll go and you wait 3 hours to play at the end of the night one song. And Jordan and I sat by each other in one of those rounds. He had been in town for about a month and a half and just dug each other's music. So we exchanged numbers, started writing, and soon enough, you know, people were asking what the band name was. So that's kind of how we got started.
Mm-hmm.
Where was I going?
No, we were talking about just getting onto the radio and that
Big
process.
D and Bubba.
Yeah, Big D and Bubba.
So Big D and Bubba, we're at Hotel Indigo in downtown Nashville, kind of to loop that back around for everybody.
Yeah, because so May 2012, you moved there. You meet Jordan right away.
Yeah.
And then at what time did you get on the Big D and Bubba?
That was probably a year later.
Okay.
So we've been writing that whole year, going to writers' rounds and kind of getting ourselves more into those situations where we were being asked to play 3 or 4 songs a night. And then one night we're at a writers' round and we're not even supposed to play. We're just there to watch one of our buddies, and we're having a couple drinks, and the producer of the show, Big D and Bubba, walks in. He's a guy named Patrick Thomas. And I had met him previously through a family friend who, when I first moved to town, said, "Hey, you need to meet this guy." And we went and got a piece of pizza, and I didn't really tell him I played music because I didn't want to push that on him. I just needed friends. And he's sitting there, and we find out that he's playing that night, and the people he's playing with couldn't make it, so he needed people to sub in for the round. And so Jordan and I borrowed a couple guitars and sat down and played music. And long story short, they said that night, "Man, I wish you would have told me, you know, that you guys sounded this good, I guess." And so they put us on a segment that they had been planning on doing and had almost scrapped, but called Chasing the Dream, where they take an unmanaged, no booking agent, like basically just a bare act, and they try to follow them until they get a record deal. And so with their 75 stations, we were able to basically form a little fan base and start touring, you know, throughout those cities.
Yeah.
And that's how we got legs, and eventually down the road, you know, got a record deal.
God, so it's that just goes in line with you got to get, I don't know if lucky is the right word, but the right opportunity.
Right
and
opportunity,
it's so much
right
about time,
yeah. And you got to get lucky. The stars have to align, definitely, in the business. But I think what I always end up telling people is you got to show up. Because Jordan and I that day weren't even planning on playing. We were planning on going and having a couple of drinks and watching a buddy. But we were trying to engulf ourselves in the atmosphere of Nashville. And that's when our moment came across, and we were there for it.
And you guys totally immersed yourself. It wasn't like, oh, we're going to get some part-time jobs and like figure it out. Like you guys moved in together.
Well, when we first moved there, we had to have jobs because we had to support ourselves and pay rent. So I was selling software for a web analytical company called Web Trends. Nice. And I didn't even know what software was. I thought it had something to do with CDs, you know, and then I find out all this crazy stuff about it. And Jordan was working at Longhorn Steakhouse, and then he was working at Macaroni Grill out at Grand Ole Opry, Opryland.
Okay.
And Jordan was one of the most talented, like, servers and bartenders I'd ever seen. Like, he would just kill everybody on tips, and so we would go do that, and then we'd meet at 5 o'clock, and our second job would start, and we'd write music.
So how did you get into music at an early age, and how did you get that itch to go to make the huge commitment to go out there?
You know, I think it probably started with my parents just playing a lot of music for me. They got me a guitar for Christmas when I was 5 and got me lessons set up. And, you know, music had always just been one of my favorite parts of life. I remember being 6 or 7 and my dad getting home and me asking him to leave the car on when he went inside so I could finish Learning to Fly by Tom Petty, because I just thought, man, this is such a cool sounding song. Mm-hmm. I don't know what it was, but it just attracted me from an early age. Mm-hmm. And that's, you know, all I ever wanted to do. Even sitting in college class, I remember thinking, you know, I don't want to, I'll do this paper, but I don't think I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm going to do journalism, but.
Yeah, I think a lot of people struggle with that.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully they can figure out a way to get more options.
Yeah.
But, you know, you and I went to high school together, and I remember going to a few shindigs together in college, and you always whipping out the guitar, and it's all getting around you, and, you know, what that does to a group of people to be able to just listen to music.
Yeah.
It's very tribal in a way,
Mm-hmm.
and it's really powerful. And you've always been so good at it. And I think you really made a lot of people happy. And what you're doing now puts a lot of smiles on people's faces, especially in the Kansas City network, to see that you are chasing it. You're getting after
Yeah,
it.
we're trying little by little. Knock on wood.
No, it sounds like, and what you've told me about some of the stories about, you got like Toby Keith. I mean, he didn't get it till he was what, 40?
I'm not sure about necessarily his path, but it does take, what some people say is a 10-year town. It takes a long time to get there. Sometimes, though, you can have the stars align and you can make it happen in 7 months. So it's a business that there's a lot of variables to, and like we talked about before, you can't compare really your success to anybody because everybody has different paths and everybody has different backgrounds, and so you just have to kind of worry about yourself in the business and trust that what you're doing, the music you're making, and the decisions you're making are the right ones.
You get worried about creating genuine music versus producing music that's catered to what the mainstream wants?
I used to think about that a lot, and to me, I had to come to a crossroads where I had to ask myself, what is genuine music? Because I grew up listening to Bob Dylan and Jethro Tull, and really my country side was Dwight Yoakam, Toby Keith a little bit, Garth Brooks, but I didn't really delve into some of the guys like Keith Whitley and Dan Sills that I now have learned to appreciate. But we went out with Kane Brown for like two months, and in the beginning he had a lot of kind of holdback on his success. People didn't really open the door as easy for him as some of these other artists that have had a successful career as Kane. And I remember standing side stage and watching him play, and he has, let me just say, a rabid fan base. They are so supportive of him, and it's pretty amazing. And he's up there singing songs that he believes in, that he's written himself, and they're buying it, and they love it, and they're eating up every word. And so whether or not it kind of just changed my whole outlook on it. Like, what is genuine music? Well, genuine music is what makes people feel emotions, and so it's kind of an interesting thing. I think the thing I learned from Kane Brown is if you believe in what you're doing, it's genuine. So that really just stems back to the person making it.
Country music needs someone like Kane Brown too.
No doubt.
I mean, he brings so much diversity to the table.
Diversity, and he's very talented, and he's helping to gain a bigger audience that may not have necessarily been country fans before.
Yeah.
And country music is, it's pretty.
It's changed
pretty
a lot.
big.
It's ginormous, and it's how much of radio and country music go hand in hand still. And there's so many country music artists too.
Yeah.
And it feels like there's a new one all the time.
Yeah, it's definitely a competitive time, I guess. It's if you're not a superstar, it can be tough. But
which must be interesting, being a songwriter and someone who is obviously very artistic, and you have to get competitive.
Yeah.
In order to create your business and brand.
But I don't think necessarily there's any. I'm also an ex-athlete, so I think there's a lot of A lot of these guys in country music were ex-college baseball players and ex-college football players. Sam Hunt, and Chase Rice. And so there's a lot of these guys who are more competitive than anyone I've ever met. Jordan, the guy I'm going to do with, may be the most competitive person I've ever met in my life. So you have to have that competitive edge. You have to have that the energy to get up and go to the airport again at 4 a.m. and take another flight back across the country, just to do it again 2 days later. So it's, I guess a mix of competitive character, and then just the drive to want to be successful.
Let's jump into the road a little bit. How many, on your busiest year, because you've been at this, 7 years?
Probably been at it probably about 5.5, because the first year we just kind of wrote and worked.
Mm-hmm. Your busiest year, maybe it's not there yet, but how many days out of 365 are you traveling?
We did last year on our radio tour, and a radio tour is basically when you get a record deal and you put out your first single, your radio or your record company is going to introduce you to all the main radio stations in the country that are going to report and going to help you get a top song, a top 40 song. So we went out and mixed in with touring and with doing those radio shows and meeting radio fans and radio program directors across the country. We did about 275 dates last year. So this year I think we did about 230. But 2017 was by far our craziest year so far. I'm sure hopefully it'll get that big again, because if you're not busy, you're not doing well.
230 dates per year?
That's about right. So we're home rarely.
Mm-hmm. A couple times a month.
Mm-hmm. Usually, if you're lucky, you're home Monday through Wednesday. So maybe 12 days out of the month.
Are you guys have your own bus now, right?
Yep, we bought a tour bus, and it's definitely been a game changer.
How's that being? Because there's how many guys on that bus?
There's 8 of us together.
Okay, that's close proximity.
Yeah.
With a bunch of grown men.
Yeah, but when you've done 5 years in a 12-passenger, man, it feels great.
That's right. I remember when you had that red van.
We still have it.
That eco van.
Yep.
You guys, there was
Chevy.
Yeah.
It did well for us. Put that in a commercial.
And you had, I remember there was a bean bag in there. You guys were sleeping on the bench seats.
Yeah, we had egg crates in the back. Those foam egg crates, because our drummer would just kind of lay back there. We took one of the benches out, and he would just lay back there. Now, we were only touring with 5 guys then, so it was you just kind of made it work.
You were grinding.
Yeah.
I mean, when the conditions are like that is not glamorous.
No, it's not. But, I never really thought about it that way in that time.
Mm-hmm.
You think about it as this is what you got to do to earn your stripes, and you're excited. It'd be tough to do a 12-passenger this next run we got coming up, but if we had to, we'd do it. So what I've heard, I guess, is everyone talks about getting a tour bus, but then once you get there, you look back and you remember that those 12-passenger van days those were the glory days, because you were kind of like outlaws. You didn't have a record deal. You just kind of went and showed up and played what songs you wanted, and you wore what you wanted. You said what you wanted, which is usually a bad thing.
Yeah. Now you have to monitor everything you say.
Yeah. I mean, you just to be smart. Anybody does, but tour bus has definitely been a luxury that we've really enjoyed.
What have been some of the most exciting fan bases across the country that you've seen?
Definitely got to give shout out to most of Illinois and Iowa. They were kind of Illinois was kind of the first place that really bought into us, and same with Des Moines, Iowa. And then the rest of the Iowa's picked up, and that's why we're going there for New Year's. But there's some random spots on the West Coast where we've done well with radio, like San Diego, that we do well in, and Sacramento. Love going up to Seattle. And then up in some parts of upstate New York, we have a good fan base. So
country music's everywhere.
It is. It really is. And there's country parts of every state. No matter where you go, even if it's in New Jersey, you're going to come across a cow eventually. So it's everywhere.
Going to school in the Northeast, there was a lot of country music fans, a lot of...
Up in Rhode Island, right? Yeah.
And it's cool to see. Just that it's able to get in all those different spots of the country.
Yeah.
And so you, correct me if I'm wrong, but songwriting has been a huge part of your background and your pedigree, correct?
Yeah. I mean, I wrote my first song, I think it was a Christian song, when I was 10, and it was because my dad said he'd buy me a Lego if I did it. So I did it, and then I fell kind of in love with doing it. And before you have a band, that's if you want to be an artist, that's what you do. You write songs, or I guess some people don't do that. Some people just sing songs, but for me, that was what my passion was. It was creating music, and there is nothing like when you're a young songwriter, that feeling of finishing a song and thinking, wow, this is really cool.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
what is your process? Like, do you have it down, a routine of where you get the most in your element, where you are the most creative?
I think, and that's changed throughout as I've written more. It's changed because before I moved to Nashville, I never co-wrote. I just wrote by myself. And now I hardly ever write by myself. I always am writing with other people or other artists. And usually the way a Nashville songwriting session goes is you'll show up to a publisher or a studio, depending on how successful that songwriter is. If he's pretty successful, he might have his own studio in his, in his garage. So you might just show up there, or you might go to your publishers. Or if you don't have a publishing deal, you might just write in your room. But you show up and you have a cup of coffee, sit down, talk a little bit, and throughout the weeks or the months, you try to write down things. At least I do. I try to write down things that someone might have said or I might have heard on a movie or read that I think that sounds like a song.
Mm-hmm.
I heard, like I've heard, for example, before, I heard some guy say to a girl, "Let me be your nightcap. Like, you don't need to buy another drink." And so I wrote that down, and me and my buddy Frank Rogers wrote it. And so you just kind of come up with ideas, and then sometimes you don't have any ideas, and you sit there and play a bass guitar until something pops up and someone says something, and you say, that we're writing that today.
How can you break down growing up and how you wrote that?
Growing Up is actually our first song we've cut that we didn't write.
Oh.
So that was written by a buddy of mine named Michael Hardy, Jimmy Deegan, and Brentley Addington, 3 great writers in town. And we heard that song and we were like, every once in a while you hear a song that you didn't write that you feel like was written for you. And so that was one of those. I can break down a little bit of, like, Till Tomorrow, our first single, was in our first top 40, so that was pretty cool. It was basically 4 guys in a room, and we weren't really necessarily talking about any individual person, but we were talking about experiences we had had with people and relationships. And Jordan blurted out, "I swear I'll never love you again till tomorrow," kind of as a joke. And then we turned it into that more of a serious song. And I remember at the time, thinking that these harmonies sound really cool. We could maybe make a band with this. And it was one of the first songs we ever wrote. So it just sometimes comes together in a weird way, and sometimes a joke is the spark that, is your title. Mm-hmm. But it'll happen different every day, and sometimes you don't even get a song. So
does the melody and the instruments come before or after the lyrics are written?
It just depends.
Yeah,
I mean, you can be sitting there and like Michael Jackson would write with a bass guitar, and he'd just come up with a groove, and then he'd start singing something over it. So for me, it's usually I'll sit there and strum a little bit, and if I think of something cool, I'll start writing that down and then try to put music to it, work around it. I've written with guys before that they'll give me poetry that they've written, like my buddy George Hart, and I'll put music to it, and we'll write a song like that. Mm. So it just depends on the mood or the vibe of the day, I think.
Do you have a group of guys or individuals that you go to?
Yeah.
And you can sit there and you can sit in a studio and it just starts flowing?
Yeah, definitely. I think, and that it can change throughout your time in Nashville, but it seems like you always have a group of people you're writing with. Sometimes you'll write with a guy or girl for 2 years, and then just you'll move on and find another, and you'll still write with them from time to time, but you just change and you kind of just try out the waters. But there always are those people that, if you sit down with them in a room, you're going to get something you're going to like, and you try to get those on your calendars, twice a month.
It's just wherever the wind blows.
Yep.
Interesting.
And it's always fun to write with new people too, to try out something new and see if it's spark.
Have you guys written for anybody else or anybody else of notoriety?
The tough part about being an artist and a songwriter is your publisher tends to keep all your songs for you. Mm-hmm. And so we've had to encourage, our manager and producer and people to say, hey, pitch out some songs because we can write new ones. But Jordan wrote When It Rains It Pours for Luke Combs, and with Luke and Ray Fulcher, and that was one of the biggest songs on the radio this year. So he, which definitely helped our band too. Validated that we have some real songwriting going on here, and it helped Jordan buy an engagement ring, so that was pretty cool.
And Luke Combs is great. I love his. I mean, you want to talk about genuine and soulful, and he's kind of. He reminds me a little bit of Chris Stapleton, and just kind of that raspy, kind of grungy, singing powerful country soul, and that niche is growing bigger in country music. Yeah. I think as country music gets way more poppy. Yeah. And country music is it's getting really poppy.
Yeah, I mean, I think you got both of those. You got pop. You got Chris Stapleton, and I think there's room for all of it.
There's a lot of variety
because it just makes the overall genre bigger, and it makes it I guess more relatable to more people. Which is at the end of the day what you want as an artist. You want more people to like your music and to come to your shows. And but yeah, it's definitely evolving. It makes me think back to the Bob Dylan days when he went from acoustic to electric, and people called him Judas. And I'm sure people then said Bob Dylan's a sellout, and they probably say that about a bunch of people now. And look at Bob Dylan. So it's just you never know what people are going to say in 40 years, and it's tough to judge it at the time, I think.
No, it's impossible to see what's going to happen in 5 years. And
you're right.
I remember being in elementary school, and things like Napster and LimeWire, and you can.
Kazaa and all that stuff.
You could get that all, for free if you wanted to, or you go to Best Buy and you'd buy yourself a CD. And I remember my brother and I, we would pick a CD for the summer. Yeah. And I remember Nelly Country Grammar was like.
It's a great one.
The whole summer we listened to that one. Yeah. And then one whole summer we listened to Kanye West's album, and then one summer in college that first Florida Georgia Line CD was my CD summer, and. That's changed. It's not like that anymore at all.
Yeah, I think people are mainly focusing on singles. I think iTunes, like we said, is on the way out. So it's people are mainly focusing on songs and trying to get that song out to as many people as they can, and spread that brand of their music. But yeah, I miss the way CDs sounded because. I really do think they sound better than an MP3 sometimes. I don't know. And the Walkman, that was a great invention.
Well, and the CDs had a flow. I mean, remember like CDs that have an intro song that they may be like 30 seconds or 60 seconds. Yeah. And you could, I mean, I remember CDs where I know each song, track 1, track 2, track 3, and I don't know. Maybe it's so tied to. The old memories and childhood and things like that growing up.
At the end of the day, people are still putting out full records. That's the thing. So it's up to the consumer. It's up to you and me to go out and buy that full record if you want to support that band. Most people just probably hear the song that's newest out, and then they'll go and look more into it, and maybe they'll buy the whole record. But because you have the option to just buy the song, it's probably hurt the sale of CDs. So that's just the way of technology, I guess. But personally, I just miss the way they sounded. Yeah.
Do you still listen to vinyl?
I actually don't have any. I have one record. It's a Jethro Tull Aqualung record, and I have a really cruddy record player. So I just come more for decoration. Yeah. It's really dusty.
What? How up to speed do you have to be with social media? And being relevant and all that, it just seems like it'd be so exhausting because especially with privacy.
Yeah, I mean, it's just you can decide how much you want to share. I don't think Chris Stapleton really is that into social media, but he's still doing great. So I think it's, some people love it, and it really does help people. It's free advertising, so it's. It is exhausting sometimes, like having to keep up with it, but that's just part of the game and part of the business now. And that's how people stay updated on you. It's Instagram and Twitter. And if you want people to show up to your shows, then usually they're not going to go on your website and go WalkerMcGuire.com tour. When are they coming? They're going to go on your Instagram and see if you posted anything recently about where you're going, or when new music's coming out. So that's just how you interact. It's kind of like an old fan club from back in the day.
Yeah.
When you'd sign up for a fan club or an email, and then you'd send them stuff, information, alerts. Now it's just through Instagram.
Well, and MySpace used to be huge.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of interaction. I know a lot of comedians used MySpace.
A lot of people got started on MySpace.
Yeah.
That brief window of time.
And that sure did come and go, didn't it?
Mm-hmm.
How much do you guys interact with your fans through social media? I mean, is it a major focus?
Twitter, definitely. Instagram, yes. Facebook, we try to keep up with it as much as we can, but on most of the stuff that people I feel like are mainly keeping up with is Instagram stories and Instagram posts, and then Twitter. So it's all us. We do all of the commenting and all the reposting and retweeting. So the thing is, man, you got so much time in airports and stuff that if you're not doing that yourself, it's unless you have,
managers of
20 million followers too, and 20,000 comments. If you're where we are, you should be answering those and interacting with your fans, and it definitely makes a difference when you do.
Well, there are little deposits everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
You're making someone's day, and to have someone, where they look up to you guys and love your music and been following you for years, and for you them to send a personal message. I mean, that's so cool.
I mean, I've written stuff on artists' pages before and gotten a like or a heart, just that, and I've been like, sweet, someone liked my comment. And even if it wasn't them, I hope it was, but I don't know if it was, but it still made me think, okay, I like that artist even more.
Well, I'm sure you see artists where you get starstruck, and then you have that same thing happen to you, and to be able to interact and have the different perspective, it's pretty amazing.
It really is.
You've never been able to do that in any time.
Yeah.
Where high profile person has direct access to the consumer.
Yeah.
Emotionally, and can interact with them. It's pretty special.
It's pretty amazing, and I think when you have that opportunity, that's why you got to stop and take pictures, and you got to sign autographs if people want them, or just say hi, because if you're in this business, every time you step out of your door, you got to be ready to do that, because that's what you signed up for. And I think that's why Taylor Swift's been so successful and why she's so brilliant is, A, she's a very talented songwriter and musician, but B, she knows, and I think has always known, how to control and put her career in where she wants to do it, and she has the highest, I think, ideals to that. I've never heard a bad story with a fan of Taylor Swift, and that's, I think, why she has such an army too. She treats them well.
It's wild. Well, and she is constantly pushing the boundaries.
Yeah, kind of like Bob Dylan did when he went electric.
I don't know that much about Bob Dylan.
Well, yeah, he's an acquired taste to some people.
He's still is he touring?
Yeah, he tours a lot. He's a hardworking man.
Wow.
He's a hardworking man.
I'm sorry to hear about your boy Tom Petty.
That was rough, man.
That was rough.
rough.
Did you guys pay some tribute or do anything?
We had played. That was a rough week because we played that Route 91 festival in Vegas that the guy shot up. All those people, and
we were there.
We played it Friday night. It happened Sunday, so we actually flew to London on Saturday morning, and had a bunch of friends there. Like Luke Combs was there that night, and woke up to the news in London.
Was that Jason Aldean?
That was Jason Aldean who was playing during that. And so we woke up to that news and had friends calling us, freaking out. And we said, no, we're in London, but we're checking on our friends there. And it was just a horrible event. And then, that night Tom Petty died. And so Randy Houser and us, we played at this place in London that night called the Bush Hall. It's a place where the Who used to rehearse. It's really cool. And we had a moment of silence, and the English people were so, it was so humbling to see how caring they were to all these American musicians who felt kind of bad that we couldn't be in America helping and trying to raise money for these victims and donate blood. And they were extremely great people. And then after we played some music for that, we played a Tom Petty song for him, and it wasn't obviously fix. It didn't fix anything, but it felt like a little bit of peace in that Bush Hall that night, and you could feel the power that music has, to heal. So,
Is London the only place you've played overseas?
we played in Cologne, Germany, as well.
Wow.
With that same run, we flew to Cologne, Germany one night and played there.
What was that like?
It was really cool, man. The buildings in Europe are all a lot older. In America, someone will say, this is an old house. It's 60 years old. And in Europe, they're like, this is a young house. It's only 400 years old.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, that half of that side is missing from a bomb from World War II. And we just left it. But it's really cool. It's cool to see the different types of culture that like the London people have compared to the German people as far as country music. And just the different styles of country they have. Like, I saw a lot more leather black cowboy hats in Germany than I did in London. So it's a really cool thing to go check it all out, and they all love country music. So.
And are Germans singing country music, or do they have their own version of it?
I think they were singing our songs.
Oh.
I mean, they weren't singing our songs in German because we've never translated them. And I shouldn't say they all love it because it is just growing over there, the country music scene. But, I mean, we played there with Lindsay L., who's a female guitarist, super talented, Canadian, and it's starting to blow up. And it was a packed house. It was probably a 150-person little club in downtown Cologne, Germany. And we played it and then flew back to London. And it was a really cool experience, man. It's crazy, though, going from places where they speak English. Even though it's a different country, they speak English, and then going to play music where you're asking for the Wi-Fi password and have no idea what they just said.
That's great. So, how are they getting your music over there?
Yeah, probably just from the internet. People write articles over there. There are certain publications in especially London that are focusing on country music, and country music fans over there know about those. So they review new music. And people over in Europe have Spotify and can access YouTube. Just through, I guess, the natural way of online streaming, probably a little bit of radio over there, and just getting curious and looking up new acts, Do
you have plans to go back over there?
Yeah, we definitely want to go back. There's a growing country music festival in London. It might be called C2C, or that might be another one. I get them all confused. But we're hoping to hop on that one and get back over there to play a big show. So,
how do you feel about playing festivals and these giant?
I love them.
Yeah,
I love them because you get to see artists that you haven't seen all year. It's kind of like you get your show done, and it's like a fun party for the rest of the day.
So because you get to enjoy it yourself.
Yeah, I mean, you got 12 other acts. We played Stagecoach this year out in Indio, California, which is where Coachella is just 2 weeks later. It's kind of like Coachella's redneck brother. But they, Kiefer Sutherland's band was playing the same day we played, and so Jack Bauer was walking around backstage, and it was really cool. And
did you call him Jack?
No, I didn't really. I was kind of nervous to talk to him, but one thing about Kiefer Sutherland, I'll give him props, is he was helping his whole band move equipment. And when you're a movie star and doing that, gotta give a guy mad props for that.
Have you seen A Star Is Born?
I have not, but I just wrote with a guy who wrote 4 of the songs for. I think I was telling you a little bit about that a couple days ago. But he wrote. His name's Aaron Ray Cheer, great guy, awesome writer, and he wrote 4 songs for that. His publisher, I think it's Dave Cobb, who produces Sturgill and Jason Isbell and John Prine's newest record.
Okay.
And he said, hey, you want to ride with Lady Gaga? And he's like, yeah. When? He said, tomorrow. You got to fly to L.A. tomorrow. And so he obviously dropped everything and flew to L.A. And I was just like, when I was riding with him the other day, I was like, tell me about it. Like, what was it like sitting in a room with Lady Gaga? And he's like, it was like any other ride. We just started bouncing around ideas, and she's really talented, and she could take some of my ideas and turn them into these awesome songs. And I think, I haven't seen it, but is there a song on there called like The Shallow?
I don't know the names, but it's.
He wrote that one. I'm not sure what other ones he wrote, but
it's a great movie, and the opening scene's amazing. Bradley Cooper is such a stud. I mean, the fact that he can do all that, be as a successful actor as he is, and then go out there, and he's so believable.
Yeah.
And he nails that role.
Well, speaking of that movie, I'm pretty sure this is right. He did that big open scene in the concert at Stagecoach this year. I think it was the night after we played.
The opening scene.
Where he's out there on the outdoor big concert.
So good.
Yeah.
That's how the movie starts, with him walking out, and the camera's right in his face, and he's hammered drunk, and because he's taking shots, and he's just, it gave me goosebumps.
Yeah.
And Lady Gaga is, crazy talented.
Yeah. She's a superstar.
She's a superstar, man.
Yeah.
Have you seen her documentary?
I haven't.
Oh my God!
I haven't seen
You're
it.
so favorite. That's on Netflix.
I've seen her in American Horror Story.
Okay.
And I've listened to a little bit of her music here and there, but she's obviously an incredibly talented musician, songwriter, and actress, and probably has more talents we haven't even seen yet.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I'm so envious of you and those people, because
I don't know if I'm in the same
I'm gonna lump
category
you
as
in there.
Lady Gaga.
Yeah.
I could wear a cool steak suit.
But you guys are artists, I don't have an artistic bone in my body. I can play one song on the piano, and that's about it.
Well, I think everyone is artistic. They just have to find what it is that they're artistic.
Different ways.
Yeah, in different ways, and it just depends on what you define as artistic. If you're defining artistic as either music or painting or coloring, then sure. But I think there's a lot more to art than maybe that bracket of where people would think, oh, he's artistic, he paints. Well, he's artistic, he's an architect, and he came up with a really, like Frank Lloyd Wright, he was very artistic and he was an architect. So there's certain things I think you have to just find where you bleed that's your passion, and then you can be artistic at it.
Yeah, that's a great point. So what does 2019 look for Walker McGuire?
Hopefully a lot of radio visits and pushing this new single, Growing Up, and we're playing Tortuga Fest, which is a festival down in Fort Lauderdale, I believe, on the beach. It's up there with Stagecoach as far as being fun. Got that coming up in April, and we're playing a fun show at the Tennessee Volunteers Arena with Luke Combs in February.
Oh, nice.
Besides that, we'll be out touring, doing it, nose of the grindstone, and hopefully just really taking some leaps this year. It's officially year 6, I think. Been there 7 years, year 6 with the band, and we like even numbers, so we're hoping this is the one.
I'm excited. I think you guys are gonna keep getting after it, and knock on wood. But that new song is such a great sound, and
appreciate it, man.
It's bluesy, and it's I think it connects with a lot of people.
Yeah, we even threw little tracks in there for the new kids.
No, it's great. But no, it's exciting. I'm so glad you came on. And
appreciate you having me. We'll have to do it again.
Yeah, you guys got a big show coming up in New Year's.
New Year's, Iowa City.
Iowa City.
Yeah, at the First Avenue Club. It's in the basement of a cosmetology school.
Oh.
So it's
hair and makeup.
Yeah, it's an interesting little venue, but it's fun, and it gets crazy and it gets packed. Nice. So we're gonna go up there and hopefully play some good music for those University of Iowa kids.
Any dates for 2019 for Kansas City?
Right now, I don't think we have any scheduled. We're about to really kind of fill up our touring for this next year, but we'll be sure to stop through here.
Yeah, so you'll come through, right?
Oh yeah.
Well, we'll definitely get some folks out, and
it'll
be awesome to see you. And man, it's been great. It's been a great Christmas and hanging out with all the buddies and you. And glad you're doing well. And
yeah, you guys too, man. I really dig what you guys are doing, and I dig The Office.
Nice.
And we'll get you some Chief stuff up here for next time I'm here.
Right on, brother. Thanks, man.
Thanks for
Appreciate
having
it. Awesome.
No doubt.
All right. It was good.
No doubt. Good old coffee buzz get you through it.
Uh-huh.